Hello adventurers, my name is Chance, welcome to my Spellbook, and thank you so much for tuning into the 11th episode of our background series. If you'd like to check out this series in its entirety, please do check out the playlist either at the end of this video or up top in the corner there. Overall, it's pretty useful, I like to think, and this will hopefully be no exception. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Cloistered Scholar, which is one of my favorite-ish ones. It's really good, has a really strong feature. It does play second fiddle to another background from a different book, but for the most part it's pretty well set up. The Cloistered Scholar is found in the Sword Coast Adventures Guide. In case you were curious, it did a really good job of adding in a lot of these backgrounds we're going to be covering, so certainly worth getting the book if you find it offers you a lot of content. Now let's move on to its description here. As a child, you were inquisitive when your playmates were possessive or raucous. In your formative years, you found your way to one of Faerûn's great institutes of learning, where you were apprenticed and taught that knowledge is more valuable than treasure or gems. Now you are ready to leave your home, not to abandon it, but to quest for new lore to add to its storehouse of knowledge. Very good stuff. I like this description a lot. Naturally, you can take some liberties with it as you see fit, but in essence, it actually reminds me a lot of the Mage College in the Skyrim series. Occasionally, you'll run into mages in the wild that are seeking to do just this, broaden their own experience and knowledge so they can relay it back to the college itself. Very cool stuff. Naturally, you can take as many liberties as you like, seeing as how it's your character, and of course discuss with your DM how to best fit this narrative into your overall world. Very cool stuff. Now let's take a look at its mechanics. Under skill proficiencies, you gain access to history, plus Arcana, Nature, or Religion, so you can pick one of the three last ones there. I feel like the majority are going to end up with Arcana, just because this background as a whole seems to be focused on it. However, who knows, it is up to you. Under languages, you get two of your choice, and sadly no tool proficiencies, although given the description it does make sense. Under equipment, you get scholar's robes, and you can have them denote which school or which institution you belong to. You gain a writing kit with all the necessities, a borrowed book from your library on a certain subject, and a pouch containing 10 gold piece, which is right in line with that average. Overall, mechanically, this background seems to be pretty good. I like that it does offer some versatility between the Arcana, Nature, or Religion, so you have all of your main casters kind of covered there, be you a wizard, or a druid, or even a cleric, or warlock, depending on how you want to go about it. The two additional languages, completely up to you, is certainly nice as well. Once again, discuss with your dungeon master which languages are going to be more prevalent in whatever region you may have grown up in, and the equipment is just, it's alright for what it is, nothing really worth bragging about, but it's not bad in general. Now let's move on to its feature. This one is called Library Access, and it's a little bit more complicated than most, but let's run through it. Though others must often endure extensive interviews and significant fees to gain access to even the most common archives in your library, you have free and easy access to the majority of the library, though it might also have repositories of lore that are too valuable, magical, or secret to permit anyone immediate access. You have a working knowledge of your cloister's personnel and bureaucracy, and you know how to navigate those connections with some ease. Additionally, you are likely to gain preferential treatment at other libraries across the realms as a professional courtesy shown to a fellow scholar. Very interesting stuff. So the way this kind of works out is it'll allow you to go to some places of research, libraries, archives, places like that with relatively little ease. They might perhaps recognize the symbol on your robes, or you may have some other form of identification as well. Once again, work with your dungeon master to figure out exactly how that works. And if you'd really want to go the extra mile with this, I would have whatever group you belong to be fairly prevalent in your world. That way, the area of the feature that mentions you have a good knowledge of the personnel and bureaucracy, that would really help make that particular section be a lot more prevalent in-game. This is something that will give you and your party quite the edge during the exploration and social pillars of the game. And, to be fair, libraries in general would serve as great exposition if the DM wanted to give you any world building information or lore that may be pertinent to your current quest or campaign as a whole. It's just a really good tool for them to take advantage of. Now let's go over some suggested characteristics really quick here. For a personal trait, I put there's nothing I like more than a good mystery. Under ideal, beauty. What is beautiful points us beyond itself towards what is true. Bond, I've been searching my whole life for the answer to a certain question. And flaw, I am easily distracted by the promise of information. All this is really good stuff and lends itself to a ton of plot hooks, as well as a lot of incentive to pursue the adventuring trade. The desire to love mystery is really good for just advancing plot lines in general. Looking towards beautiful things or having a tendency to go towards them would likely lead to the character becoming distracted, maybe at a key moment, and the question you're searching for might be just the whole focus of the quest you're going out to do, and then after you find that answer, you plan on returning back and retiring as an adventurer, which, to be fair, it isn't necessarily a terrible way to build a character. A lot of times I find players build characters with no real end in mind and no real goal outside of maybe dying a glorious death from time to time. But I do think that'd be interesting, and easily distracted by the promise of information would fall in line with the beauty ideal, right? As well as perhaps lead them down more nefarious paths. For example, if a demon offered them some information in exchange for a handful of souls, what would that character do? It kind of depends on what kind of a scholar they are. If they're more morally influenced and seek to be an example to other students, then maybe they'll turn it down. But if they're cold, calculating, and unfeeling, maybe they'll take that offer only to maybe regret it later on. I also think it would be relatively humorous if the question they were looking for was, what is the nature of life, or something to that effect, and the answer is something as cliche as friendship, Something like that would be relatively interesting to play around with, at least conceptually. Now let's get to my personal thoughts. As it relates to the Cloistered Scholar as a whole, I really like it. Its description is interesting and provides some sense of a character arc just in of itself, which is super nice for both dungeon masters and players to refer back to from time to time. Its mechanics are quite versatile between picking your own proficiencies and picking your own languages. The only real drawback is a lack of utility that comes from artisan tools. But c'est la vie, it is what it is, and you can get those from classes as well, and if your DM is open to the optional rules about it, you can pursue that in your downtime. Looking at its feature, I think it's quite good and provides a great opportunity for exposition, and I do find a lot of dungeon masters have a nasty habit of over-preparing, and to be fair, I'm guilty of that as well, but this feature provides a great outlet for all that extra information they may have included, but not had the opportunity to tell you just because it hasn't come up yet, and it might not, so I think it's relatively good for that alone. Looking at their characteristics, they're quite wide and varied, and do offer some really interesting insights as to what kind of a scholar you might be. Overall, I like it. I think it's a pretty strong choice. I might rework some of the feature just to make it a little bit better at all levels of play and at all locations, but outside of that, I think it's quite well done. That being said, let me know what you think about Cloistered Scholar down beneath in the comments section. Be sure to mention any thoughts, questions, comments, or concerns you have regarding it. And of course, feel free to have a free one-shot. Just use code WELCOME at the Guildhall, and it'll be yours. That being said, I hope you have a great day, and as always, happy adventuring, my friends.